Hey guys, welcome to the first lesson in our A1 Biology tutorial series on how to make notes that actually improve your grades. So before we start, I want to make something clear. The secrets that I'm about to share with you in this series of lessons are not just theory. They've been tried and tested and the results speak for themselves. So why should we make notes for bio? Well, making notes is a must for content-heavy subjects such as bio. Okay, the benefits are threefold. First, you gain thorough understanding. When making notes, you are forced to read through all the parts of the syllabus, so you expose the details in your syllabus that you might not have really understood before. Okay, second, the act of writing notes ingrains the content in your memory. This is why the topics that you aren't very familiar with are usually the ones that you haven't made notes for. And last but not least, they act as a quick reference material when you need to do a fact check. And this is much better than looking through your entire textbook. It's like finding a needle in the haystack, right? So these are the top 3 mistakes when making notes. Okay, mistake number 1 is putting everything in. Your notes should be a concise form of the school notes or textbook. So you don't have to include everything that the textbook has. Okay, here's an example that I found in the textbook about complex carbohydrates. So do we need to put this in our notes? Okay, the answer is no. This is the textbook trying to teach us and introduce this concept to you, so they provide a lot of background information that is not the crucial content. So don't put this in your notes. Another example, okay, they are trying to explain the concept of denaturation. So again, you don't have to put it in your notes. So how do you know what is important to put in your notes? Later in this lesson, I will show you exactly how. Mistake number 2 is copying word for word. So let's say you did find some important information that you want to make notes of, but then a huge mistake that some students make is they copy word for word. Okay, this is an example of what you might do, right? You see, fat digestion, it is indeed a crucial part of the syllabus. We need this. But do you just copy everything you see here, word for word, into your notes? Right? No need, okay? Instead, you should just condense it into a short and useful statement, which we can then use when writing our answers. Okay? Here's an example of how you can do that. So I've changed it into a question and answer form. Explain how bile aids in digestion. Okay, so bile salts emulsify large fat droplets into smaller ones, increasing the surface area to volume ratio for lipase to digest triglycerides into glycerol and fatty acids. You see how much shorter that is compared to copying everything word for word, right? Okay, and here's mistake number 3. Perhaps the one that plagues most of you is trying to make your notes too fancy. Okay, I completely understand the urge to make your notes really fancy. It's because you want to give it your best and you want to produce notes you're proud of, right? But we have to go back and ask ourselves, what is the purpose of making notes in the first place? It's really just a tool to help us score well in the exams, right? It's just a tool. We need it to be neat and organized, but it doesn't need to be beautiful. So why it's such a huge problem is because it wastes precious time. Okay, after you've made the notes, you still need to further memorize the content, do practice questions. So if you spend so much time on making notes, you don't have enough time to do those other important activities which really help you gain the improvements in your grades. Okay, if I were to give an analogy, wasting time making fancy notes is like trying to make the fanciest, prettiest hammer you can find, right? So you spend so much time getting the hammer, but then you spend way too little time actually building the house. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, wow, I make quite a few of these mistakes, so how do I actually go about making notes in a way that helps me improve my grades effectively? So I'm going to show you exactly how. Right? Step 1 would be locate the learning outcomes for each topic. So this is the topic of enzymes. At the start of your school notes and your textbook, right, you always see the list of learning outcomes. So this is what the syllabus wants you to know. And we are going to take this list and put it at the start of our topic, okay, our notes for that topic. So just list it exactly as it is, and later, we will use them as subheaders for our notes. Okay, step 2 is to identify the keywords for that topic. This is optional, okay, but it's very rewarding. So you identify all the keywords, and how do you know if it's a keyword? Usually in your school notes, they are bolded to show that it's a keyword. Then you put them into your keyword list, okay? So once you have a list, you will put the list underneath the list of learning outcomes. And when you come back to view the notes in future, right, you can quickly scan through this list and refresh your memory. So you know, oh, these are the keywords I must have in my answers if I'm answering a question on this topic. Here's an example of how it will look like. Right, so step 3 is now you're going to use the learning outcomes as your subheaders. So you will locate all the important information that answers those learning outcomes, and this will be the content for your notes. Okay, so this helps you cut through all the noise and only go for the important, crucial information, which is information that answers the learning outcomes. Okay, so once you have your content in, add simple diagrams or pictures, okay? So biology is easier to understand when we have visual representations, right? And diagrams, like for example, if you're trying to imagine the cardiac cycle, it'd be quite difficult to understand if you don't have a diagram there. So if it's easy to draw, you can draw it out, okay? Don't waste too much time. But if it is quite complicated, then go and print out a picture and paste it in your notes. Okay, it is not like a rule that you cannot do this. After all, notes are just a tool, right, for us to score better in the exams. Okay, and step 5 is to underline or highlight the keywords and tell yourself that these are keywords, so they must be in your answers. I personally prefer underlining as highlighting causes smudging. Okay, and step 6 is to add commonly asked questions and their answers. So add in where appropriate, and what I mean by these commonly asked questions is those questions that always have a standard rehearsable answer. Okay, here's an example. So explain the process of blood clotting, right? The answer of this question will always be the same. Alright, so this is what I mean where you can just add it into your notes. And now for some bonus tips on making notes. Always leave a lot of space between sections of your notes, in case you want to add more in future. I also recommend using a smaller notebook than A4 size, such as A5 size, because A4 is too big and crams too much information onto one page. Okay, in the video description, I've also provided resources for you, and here's what you get inside. Okay, there's a summary of the key points that I've mentioned in this video, so that you can quickly refer to it when you make your own notes. There's also a cheat sheet that includes all the learning outcomes plus all the keywords for each topic, so that you don't have to manually dig through the textbook and the school notes yourself. Okay, I've already done that for you. After watching this video, information in itself doesn't actually help you, right? You actually have to use that information and take action, right? So here are the action items. Download the resources provided. Then for those topics you haven't made notes yet, start making notes as soon as you can based on the structure that I've given you. Okay, what if you already made notes? For those topics you already made notes on, go and check to see if you forgot any learning outcomes. Okay, and then also add in the commonly asked questions. So that's all for this lesson. Go ahead and apply what you've learned and let me know how it goes.